Hello and welcome to Generational Wellbeing with Dr. Lum. I am Dr. Lum. Thank you for joining us today. If you're new here, I'll introduce myself first. I am Dr. Lum Frundi, a board certified pediatrician and founder of Generational Wellbeing. I help mothers create sustainable, healthy habits for themselves and for their children so they can start reversing disease processes like diabetes and obesity and living very healthy and energetic lives. And joining me today is Dr. Priscilla Hidalgo, referred to as Dr. H by her patients. She is a board certified and fellowship trained psychiatrist, and she's serving her patients in North Carolina and Florida. Thank you for joining me today, Dr. H.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, could you tell our audience more about you?
Yes, I am a psychiatrist, as you mentioned, serving patients in North Carolina and Florida. The best way I can describe my practice is that I am the psychiatrist that you see if you are busy and you need to feel less stressed. The hours of my practice are usually in the evenings, so that way people don't have to take time off from work in order to see the psychiatrist.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us today. So, we'll be talking about simple ways to add joy to your life. And I'm so excited about this because with seeing and talking to mothers and taking care of children or loved ones, it could be stressful and overwhelming, right?
To
So,
say the least.
right. So, before we get started, tell me, what is joy?
Joy is such an interesting thing. I don't think you can find just like one definition. I mean, one way to consider, thinking about joy would be, it's a sense of, pleasant emotions or happiness, a state of well-being, a state of mind. And the way that I think about joy is more of a state of mind because I think that emotions are not permanent. They're fleeting at best. So I think that if we start thinking about joy as a state of mind, that we can find ways to kind of have that sense of well-being throughout the day on a regular basis.
I love that with a state of mind. That kind of changes when you think about emotions, because I think when I talk to most people about whether it's joy, there's that mix up between joy and happiness.
Mhm.
Whereas you mentioned state of mind versus a feeling of emotion. Oh, my baby took the first step. Oh, I'm so happy about it. But that, comes and goes based on whatever activity you're experiencing at that time, right?
Yes, and if you think about it, people often, when you ask them what brings you joy, or what is joy for you, they would say, let's say, joy is being with my family. They often tell you what causes the joy, not exactly what joy is like for them. And I think it's because it is so hard to describe, as it is subjective, right? What makes you experience joy or happiness might be very different for me. So I think having just like one definition makes it very, very difficult. So it is easier to think about what brings you that sense of wellness or well-being or happiness than to really think about what exactly that emotion or that definition is.
Right. Yeah, extremely important, especially again, I'll keep bringing back to mothers and childhood because that's who we're really talking to,
Yeah.
right? So what are the simple ways that you think a parent or anybody can really figure out what brings me joy? Like, what are the things that I can look into to figure out what brings me joy?
Since joy is very subjective, I would really take a moment to think about what are the things or like the variables in your life that makes you feel happy. Earlier on, you were talking about, my child took the first steps, and you may feel that happiness in the moment, and then it kind of goes away. Then life happens, right? So then we're back to how we felt. And yet, when you ask most parents if they are happy with the decision of having a child or not, they would say, "Oh my gosh, it's so hard, but I'm the happiest I have ever been in my life." But they are not able to really tell you it's just one thing, it's just a myriad of things. And even though every day is not the same and every day has its own challenges, people are always able to think about it in a more wholesome way, in a more generic way. So they're able to tell you that they feel happier. So I would say kind of using that mindset to other areas in our life would be the key. One thing is to focus on gratitude. So I know this kind of has been rinse and repeat and said a lot, but it really does work. And I'm not talking about, just focusing on the low-hanging fruit, like, have a job or, have a home, but really thinking about, what, my child is healthy, or I was able to sleep well last night. My child slept through the night. This is good. You know, think of the things that really, really, really connect with you and really bring out that gratitude and really stick. The other thing I would say is to stop comparing yourself to other people, especially moms. I know that sometimes they are in situations where other people are offering advice or saying, oh, you shouldn't do that, or you should do this, or whatever. And many times, since women can be very self-critical, we're often looking maybe someone else's social media and thinking, oh my God, look what she's doing with her kid. She's so good. Look how she's disciplining her kid, whatever. And I think we often get that feeling that I'm not doing enough or I should be doing things differently. And that tends to get particularly worse if we start comparing ourselves to other people. So I would say first, stop comparing yourself to other people. The other thing is to be kind to yourself on those same lines. We don't have everything figured out. There will be days that, will be harder than others. There will be days that you might lose your temper with your kid and then you feel bad that you have scarred him for life. So, just be kind to yourself. Talk to yourself the same way that you would talk to someone else, like you would talk to a friend. You wouldn't tell a friend, oh my God, how do you talk to your kid like that? You suck. No, you would actually say, you know what? You lost your temper. It happens. You're human. It's okay. Move on. So trying to kind of manage that self, critical voice that sometimes we have in the back of our heads.
Yeah, I love all of those tips, and it's really hard when you, especially social media, you go on there, everybody's looking so good, and I can barely get out of bed. It's not, it's not easy to just shut that out. I'm like, oh my goodness, I really can't do this. But I love the fact of not comparing because it's hard raising a child. And every child is very different, even when you have two children, the third one may just throw a curveball at you. And I usually tell parents too, like, they don't come with a manual. You have to just figure it out, right? And being
Exactly.
yeah, and being kind to yourself is super important, because unless you really be kind to yourself, and being kind to yourself, one other thing is like the way you treat yourself, your kids can really pick up on that too. And the way you talk to yourself, you end up talking to them like that too. So it's not only for you, but also for your family.
Yeah, and that can also model the behavior for the kid. So that way, when kids are, let's say they make a mistake, or like I said, they didn't do well in an exam, because they have seen you being kind to yourself, they will say, you know what, I didn't do that great on this exam. I'll do better the next time. So it's not just how it impacts you, as you were saying, it's how it impacts everybody around you.
Right, right. So what are some other benefits of joy?
Yeah, so we know that people that have this state of mind of being okay, well-being, they do end up having less issues with cardiovascular disease. Their immunity gets better. They end up also experiencing less aches and pains. And you probably have heard from a lot of moms, saying, "Oh my gosh, it's just like my neck is so stiff, and I just feel like I'm getting old. Everything is creaking, and all that." And don't get me wrong, it could be a sign that something is happening for sure, but it could also be a sign of your body telling you, hey, you might want to slow down, or you might want to try to refocus things a little bit.
Right, right. Yeah, I do hear that a lot. I remember there was a patient I was doing like a neck exam on. He said, "This feels really good. I think my mom needs that." So that was really funny. But yes, it you don't see it creeping out, and your kids are watching, right? So I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that." But they're listening, they're watching, and yes, the it can really help with the pain relief and immunity too, which we don't think about. Where sometimes when you're stressed, overwhelmed, lack of joy, and your immune system goes down, where you find yourself where if any virus floats around, you happen to just like I'm sick again, and I'm sick again, and we end up losing a lot of time from work, or our kids are out of school. So it really, that's like a huge, huge one for me.
Yeah, I think we tend to think a lot in the short term. So, like with the massage thing that you were just talking about, it's like, oh, you know what? I just need a massage, and then you get the massage, you feel fine. What for the next 2 hours?
Right.
And then life happens. We're kind of going back to that. So one of the things that I tell my patients always is to try to figure out what things you can do during the day that can kind of bring a little bit of joy. And that can be anything, because like I said, it's very subjective. So for some people, it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna go walk outside. I just need to look out the window, spend time with my pets, or watch something stupid on YouTube, whatever it is. But it also has to do a lot with changing the way that we think about things, because you can get that massage, you can feel well in the moment, but that's not going to change the fact that, when things get really stressful, that you end up being hard on yourself. Or for instance, you stop thinking, gosh, I'm such a bad mom, I cannot get anything right. So maybe changing, also starting to reframe those thoughts, and think about it. You know what, I didn't do such a good job today. I felt like I wasn't really on top of my game, and that is okay. I'm human. It will be better the next time. So it's about the behaviors and also the way that we think, and reframing those thoughts that are not really helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you for all those tips. And I like how you're ending up with the behavior, right? Which is what we talk about every day, small practical steps. It doesn't have to be something huge or something really big. It could be as simple as, like you said, take a walk outside, go for a run,
Mhm.
or just time for yourself, take a longer shower, right? Go to bed
Yes.
an hour earlier, some self time. So, and again, it's really dependent on each person. But what are some other simple things that you think or maybe some of your patients have done that they found helpful?
I would say the other thing is important is to have like close relationships. One of the things that we know, I think there was a study, I think it was Harvard that did it, and they followed people for several years. And the one thing that they were able to find that consistency that was consistently associated with levels of joy and well-being was actually social relationships. And with that, I don't mean like talking to anyone and just be friends with anyone, but having your tribe, having your circle, having your people that if you're not doing well, you can feel free that you can talk to them, and you trust them to tell you things, and tell you, hey, you might say that you're okay, but you look really stressed right now. They're not only there to hear you, but also to call you out, and then tell you when things are not going well.
Right.
Spending time with the people that are your vitamin people, let's say, the people that bring out the best in you, that people that make you feel less stressed, that is very, very important. We know that one of the things that kills joy is actually the lack of social relationships, kind of isolating oneself. And I know a lot of times people say, you know what, it's just I cannot stand people. I don't want to be around people and stuff. But all of us, we are social animals. So we need to have, you may not need to have a huge circle, but you need to have some people in your life. So for sure, making sure that you have your social connections. The basic stuff is always important, like healthy eating, being as healthy as you can be, eating right, exercising. And that's why when I talk about health, I'm not only talking about your physical health, but I always talk about how to reframe those thoughts, because all that stuff is part of your general health. Another thing that patients have told me that they have found actually very helpful is to actually schedule some time just to exist, just to be in the moment. Where if let's say this allows you, to do that, like you can block like 10 minute slot where you can just go ahead and be like, you know what, I'm just going to close my eyes. I may meditate, I may not do anything. I may just like rest in the moment, just be with myself and be with my thoughts, and just having that little moment just for yourself. Because I know a lot of times it can feel like you don't have time for yourself, or time, it just feels like you don't have the bandwidth to even have the time for other people, even.
Right, right, right. Amazing tips. And I love the last one you talked about scheduling 10 minutes because
Mhm.
that's something I actually just started doing during my breaks at work. Like you're busy, busy, busy going. And when you have that break, sometimes the tendency is scroll down. But I find that when I schedule that time, I put a timer on my phone. And when I do that, I have the energy to finish up the the day, and I work really long hours. So that is absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't schedule anything at this point like that, but one of the things that happens for me that I worked on years ago is that I like meditating, but I cannot meditate for too long. So whenever I feel like really stressed, something goes off in my brain that says you have to slow down, and then I do like a 1 minute meditation just to kind of bring myself back in. If I mean I allow myself 5 minutes just in case 1 minute doesn't do it, but I
right.
try to do things that can kind of bring me back to, okay, I'm center, I'm good. I can tackle everything. We are good to go. I have started scheduling more times for just like having writing time just to kind of let my ideas flow, like journaling, because I feel that a lot of times I have like a lot in my head and I'm like, I just need to put this in paper. So that way it's not just like floating in my head. And I have scheduled time for that. And I have found that to be very helpful. So that way I'm not always thinking, oh my God, put a pin on that. I'll remember to remember this, kind of stuff. Or rather, I write it down and then I feel like, okay, I'm good. I don't have to remember any of it because it's in paper now.
Right, right. And that helps us sleep too.
Correct.
Right. Well, thank you. Thank you for all the amazing tips. Any last tips for us before we?
I would say just take care of yourselves, and taking care of oneself, it's not easy at times. So even if, let's say you say after work every day, I'm going to walk 15 minutes, if there's one day that you're not able to do it or things change and you're not able to do those things, have a backup plan so that way you can do something that can be equally helpful. But also, if it's not just possible to do it, don't be too hard on yourself. Not every day you're going to get it. Not every day is going to be perfect. Not every day you're going to have that state of well-being because life happens, so, but I would say just take care of yourself, and especially your mind and the way that you talk to yourself.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. And for if there's someone listening here in maybe Florida or North Carolina who wants to find out who have heard this and like, I want to work with her, where can they find you?
Yes, if you like what you've heard, because I love patients that I are so interested in working on these things, and most of my patients and I agree on this. You can go to my website, www.luxpsychiatry.com. That is LUX psychiatry.com. And you can just click on new patient, and then my system will walk you right through it, give you access to my calendar, and you can book an appointment. I'm a huge proponent of self-compassion. So all my patients, they will say that that is like one of the things that I just keep saying over and over again. And we do a lot of work on that because I really believe that if we are kinder to ourselves, we wouldn't feel the weight of the world as heavy as we feel it at times.
Amazing. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Thank you.